"What was that? Did you see something?" Sia asked. "While scanning this area earlier, I found that the beasts seem to be concentrated around the tower. Strange, right? Low-level beasts don't usually have a form of high intelligence. They hunt, sleep, and eat. Sometimes they do this in packs and might have a type of territory, but this seems oddly specific. In a place as large as this, and with many beasts, usually they would be several territories and maybe several packs. So why are they all centered around the tower, as if they were guarding it or gathering around it for some reason?" Sia had disregarded most of what Logan had said. The only thing she had heard was they were heading into an area where beasts lived, and she was wondering if she had made the right decision to follow the two in the first place. As they continued to walk down the street, suddenly, Peter ran straight off to the side into one of the buildings. This sudden movement surprised Logan, since he was yet to see anything. He had gone into the darkness, and the others were unable to see him. Logan did have night vision equipment built into his helmet to help him see, but it was grainy and didn't allow him to see far ahead. A few moments later, and Peter returned, holding what looked like a dog in his hand. Black blood splattered over him, and the dog was carried, lifeless. "They've been following us," Peter said, "and more are coming." It didn't take long after Peter's warning, because Logan and even Sia could now see several dogs in view. Without hesitation, both Logan and Sia started to attack the dogs. She threw out spears, slowing the ones jumping towards her and leaping out of the way, while Logan was able to fire out beams of energy that knocked the dogs away, finishing them in one blast. Logan's blasters were effective when it came to basic tier beasts, but things at a much higher level, or the Dalki, would pretty much be non-effective. The suit itself was made from beast gear mixed in with technological parts. His blasters and the energy coming out from them were not made from beast gear. It had the same effect as explosions of the past. The problem was, the Dalki and higher-tier beasts had a resistance to this. Seeing that they were lower-tiered beasts, Logan didn't hold back, blasting his beams of energy at every one of them. Soon they realized there wasn't much for Peter and Sia to do. Peter had managed to defeat a couple more, but Logan would blast most of them away before they even got close. Eventually, the beasts stopped leaping through the air, and Logan stopped using his blasters. There was a limited supply of energy, and if they stopped attacking, then Logan would do the same. However, something strange occurred. They had managed to kill 30 different dogs in total. Both Peter and Logan could see there were still plenty around them. Still, they didn't run away, but stood there at the edge of the street next to the buildings, growling. "Why aren't they attacking?" Sia asked. "That is something I would like to know the answer to as well," Logan replied. On closer inspection, it seemed like the dogs were no longer looking at them. Instead, they were facing the street, looking out towards the tower in front of them. "They are shaking," Peter said. "The beasts, I can tell they're scared." From the street, the sounds of footsteps could be heard. Whatever was coming towards them was frightening the beasts even more, because with each footstep, it looked like the beasts were pulling back slightly. Even Logan, a level 8 user who was defeating each of the beasts in one go, didn't have the same effect. Finally, the figure was starting to come into view. From out of the shadow, a dark outline could be seen. It had a human outline shape, but it was still hard to make out. Still, Logan was sure of one thing. It was clear it wasn't human. It was a beast. For the first time during the trip, Logan started to sweat heavily in his suit. If a beast had a humanoid figure, it meant one thing. The opponent they were about to face was at least at the king tier. After collecting the beast crystals from the defeated hounds, Quinn suddenly received the message about obtaining EXP. He had figured out that the EXP he just gained must have been from Peter. It was the only thing that made sense, and would also explain why the system had used the word share. This meant one thing. Peter was close. He didn't know how or why Peter was down here as well, but if he had to guess, Peter probably chose to come down here to follow him. It was strange, though, even though the system was able to pick up the EXP points from Peter, Quinn was still unable to sense Peter's presence like he could when he was above ground. "What's wrong?" Fex asked as he could see Quinn was deep in thought. Quinn wanted to go searching for Peter. He didn't know how far away he needed to be for the system to pick up the EXP, but the fact that he got experience points in the first place meant right now he was fighting other beasts. "I think I might have spotted a strange-looking building over in that direction," said Quinn. "Do you mind if we check it out first before going to the tower?" Fex shrugged his shoulders and replied, "Hey, it's not like we know how to get out of this place anyway." Both of their eyesights were as good as each other. Nearly all vampires could see as well. The only thing that improved as they grew stronger was their senses. Perhaps a stronger vampire would be able to sense energy in a specific direction, but in terms of how far or well they could see in the dark, it was near all the same. Looking in the direction that Quinn had pointed to, Fex could see nothing that looked out of the ordinary. Still, Fex was curious why the sudden change in direction. As they were closer to the tower, the area around it wasn't as wide. If Quinn was to go in a circle, perhaps he can spot them. Without his senses, there was no way to tell which direction to go in. As Quinn was thinking about it, another message appeared. 5 EXP shared. The message just confirmed that Peter was still in combat. Peter was strong, but if he was surrounded by multiple basic tier beasts, like they were just moments ago, he wouldn't get out of it unscratched. Even with his super healing, it would mean he would eventually have to consume flesh once again, so Quinn picked a random direction and headed off. Slowly, Layla's eyes started to open. Her vision was blurry at first, but what stood out to her was the pain in the back of her head. She instinctively placed her hand, and the stinging was worse. Looking at her hand, dried particles of blood had rubbed off onto it. It was hard to see in the dark, but she knew from the feeling. "Are you okay?" Vorden asked. As she looked up, her vision had returned, and she could see the person who had put her in this situation, standing right next to her. "Get away from me!" Layla said in a panic. She pushed her feet off the floor against her, and once again her head had banged into the wall. Vorden did as asked and slowly backed away, seeing that she was panicked. She had already been hurt, and Vorden didn't want to cause any more pain. "Calm down, I'm not going to hurt you," Vorden said. The sound of sobbing could be heard. Layla had planted her head between her knees and let out all the emotions away. "Why do you behave like this to me?" she cried. Seeing Layla like this, Vorden felt a sudden ache in his heart. He never wanted her to get hurt. "I'm sorry," Vorden said. The sobbing started to stop, and Layla began to get a grip on her emotions. It seemed like Vorden was back to his usual self. The air around him that she noticed in the past was no longer there, but she knew it could flick like a switch. It was as if he was bipolar. Seeing that Vorden was okay now, and she didn't want to step on his toes, she thought maybe she could find out the reason. It wasn't normal to be like this, and at the Pure Base, she had seen cases similar to him. It was going to be hard for her. Her hands couldn't stop trembling as someone far more powerful than her standing right in front of her. A wrong move or a word could end her life, and she felt like it. "Vorden, are you okay? Sometimes it seems like you suddenly change. I want to believe you when you say you don't mean to hurt me, but when I end up like this—" As Layla spoke, her voice was shaky. She tried her best to hide it, but Vorden could feel the fear. Lately, the changes happening to Vorden had become more frequent. In the past, he remained in control most of the time, but there were plenty of times recently when he needed to rely on others for help. And now, for the first time in a while, Syl was actively asking for a seat. As these changes happened, it was expected that people would start to notice. The worst thought in his mind was the possibility of one of the others taking control of the seat. They didn't have the social skills that Vorden possessed to keep up his image. If they took over, he wouldn't know what to do. "When I first met Quinn, I knew he was different," Vorden replied. "Perhaps for the same reasons you were attracted to him, I was too. He was plain, a level 1 user, but had this look in his eyes that said he still had a fight in him, not like the others. Of course, at the time, I didn't know he was a vampire. In my old school, there were quite a few Quinns. They were the same. They still had hope, still had a fight in them, but eventually they were broken down and beaten, submitted to the system just like everyone else. It was rare to see someone make it into military school without already being broken. You could even see it with Peter. I was sick of it, sick of everything, and decided if I could at least save one person, it would be enough for me. Maybe I could show Quinn that even as a level 1 user, not everyone treated you the same, and you could make it through in the world. Then I got wrapped up in all this vampire business." It was a good explanation, and Layla could tell there was some truth behind Vorden's words, but she could also tell that he was missing out on some key points and details. The question was, why, though? "What does that have to do with me, though? Can't we both get along with Quinn?" Layla asked. "Are you jealous or something?" "Not me," Vorden mumbled, too quiet for Layla to hear. "I haven't exactly had the best of experiences since coming here," Vorden replied. "I was tied up and beaten by the second years, shoved to a red portal planet, and now stuck here. I think it's normal to be a bit unstable after what we have been through." As Vorden finished what he was saying, he took a step forward. Layla reacted by shuffling her knees closer to herself, curling into a ball. The sight of this reminded him of Syl, and in a sweet, calming voice, he did what he usually did without thinking about it. Vorden started to sing. "It will be okay. I will make your worries go away. I am by your side. I will always be kind." As she listened to the soft angelic voice, without realizing it, Vorden was already next to her once again. Her hands had stopped trembling. "What was that?" she asked. "An ability?" Vorden started to laugh. "It was a song my mother used to sing to me to calm me down." He gently lifted his hand and touched her head, bringing it down and closer to his chest. All his movements were so soft as he inspected the wound. It was a side of Vorden she had never seen before. "I like this, Vorden," Layla said. This was the first time that Logan had ever felt panic. Due to him having night vision in the helmet he was wearing, he could see the beast before it came into view. Peter could as well, but was unaware of the magnitude of horror they were about to face. Perhaps Peter didn't study as well at school and thought it was just a regular beast, or when he had evolved everything about him changed. Right now, it didn't look like he could feel fear like the others. Beasts were separated into different tiers. The tiers were based on the crystals that were embedded in their body. The more powerful the crystal, the higher the tier of the beast. This, however, didn't always mean they were stronger. Depending on the beast's structure or abilities, sometimes in rare cases, some were more difficult to deal with. This was unlikely the case, because a higher-tier beast can draw more power from the crystal. Basic tier, intermediate tier, advanced tier, and right now, they were about to face something that was at least at king tier level. There were levels above this, including the highest level ever given, the demon tier. Throughout history, whenever a beast that had a humanoid shape was discovered, it would at least be at the king tier level or above. There were still beasts that were at this level that didn't have a humanoid shape, but a humanoid-type beast has never been lower than a king tier. Knowing that he would need everyone's help, Logan immediately changed one of his blaster's shapes, slightly allowing it to be more narrow. The armor shifted at a fantastic speed, and when it had finished transforming, Logan quickly fired 3 blasts into the buildings around them. The shots weren't energy blasts like before. Instead, these were sticky light balls. They allowed a considerable amount of light to be shown and would easily stick onto whatever object they hit. There were 2 reasons for Logan doing this. One was to allow them to see their opponent more easily. If a creature came from the dark, their eyes and senses should be adjusted to the environment down here. He had to even the playing field, and it would also allow Sia to help them. The second reason was related to the first. The sticky lights had been shot in a triangle formation around them. One to the left, one to the right, and one slightly behind, where the king-tier beast was standing. This lit up the entire street. Although the dogs couldn't see the strange light, they could feel it and were frightened away. What Logan hoped for was that the light source would hurt or blind the king-tier beast's sensitive eyes, but it seemed to have no effect as it continued to walk forward. "What is that thing?" Sia said, trembling. Now that there was a light source, Sia could see what Logan could see, and she knew straight away the danger of the beast. "Should we run?" she asked, looking for an answer from Logan, who seemed to be the only one acting. "Run? There is no point in running. The moment we turn our back, we will die," Peter said. Hearing this, Logan realized Peter was perhaps more aware of the situation than he had thought. He knew there was nothing they could do. The beast slowly continued to walk towards the group, and by now, all of the dogs in the area had already scurried away. Now not only could the beast's outer shape be seen, but all of its details were in view. Although it had an outer human shape, it was a bit on the larger end. It stood around 8 feet tall. Its body was twisted and strange, as if it was made of mud and rocks. The muscle structure of the creature was outlined with plant roots, while the rest just looked like a mound of mud. What was frightening about it, though, was in the upper mound part of its body. Several human skeletons could be seen half sunken in its body and half sticking out. A skull, a rib cage, and other parts as well. It was as if the beast had been made from all the parts around it. Finally, on its 2 long arms, there were no fingers. Instead, they were long and sharp like a blade. From the forearm downward, it looked like the mud tree-like material changed into a harder substance. The blades shined green in color like a hard jade. "See ya, Pio!" Logan shouted. "Buy me some time!" Logan was unprepared to meet something like this down here. He thought that if the school was prepared to send some students to an orange portal planet, they would have at least sent them to one where at most the advanced tier-level beasts had been reported to be seen. There was no point attacking the beast with his current blasters. It would do nothing. What Logan needed to do was get his most powerful weapon and suit on, but it would take some time. His suit started to break down into little spiders. They were eventually all scattered on the floor. From the ground up, they started to rebuild a different type of suit right in front of him. "Come on, faster, you guys," Logan said. "I know you usually do your best, but right now, I need you more than ever." The unconfirmed king-tier beast continued to slowly walk as if it was a king taking a stroll through its kingdom. Peter could see Logan's spiders building something and knew their best chance of survival right now was relying on him. If they wanted to live, they needed to do what was asked of them. Sia could see Peter was about to move forward and shouted, "No, wait! The thing still hasn't attacked us yet. Maybe if we don't attack it, it will just walk past us." Peter took a look at the beast. It had now stopped walking forward and stood in the middle of the street. It placed one of its bladed hands in front of the other and scraped them against each other. A slight screeching sound could be heard as the beast continued this process. "No," Peter said. "It already considers us intruders. It will keep attacking us until we're gone, I can tell." With those words said, Peter threw his bag to the ground and dashed forward. It was at an incredible speed that Peter had not displayed until this point, and it was a surprise to him. This was because Quinn had gotten stronger, and in return, Peter's stats had increased. Usually, Peter would do his best to hide his abilities. The speed he was running at right now was not possible for a human who wasn't wearing any beast gear or didn't have any ability. But it wasn't the time to hide their powers. It was a matter of life and death. Although Sia was frightened, she wasn't stupid. She too got into position, dashing towards one of the sides of the building. While doing so, she threw out her spirit spears. "Please hit," she prayed. If the beast was indeed a king tier, then there wasn't much chance that her spears would hit the target. However, the beast stood there and allowed the spears to be lodged into the upper part of its body. "Is it going easy on us?" she thought. At the same time, she wondered what Peter was planning to do. He held no beast weapons and only had his regenerative ability. He would be killed in a matter of moments. When Peter was in range, the beast swung down its blade hand. Using all his strength, Peter swung both his fists together like a tennis racket. "This is it," Sia said. "No human has the strength to match a beast with their bare hands." As the hands met with the side of the blade, the power was surprisingly equal. The blades were knocked away, but Peter hadn't budged. "What is going on? Who is this person?" Sia said, surprised. The beast was confused. While fighting, it would purposely match its strength based on the opponent in front of it. It was sure it had gauged Peter well. What it didn't account for was the spirit spears in its body. Adjusting its power, it swung its blade faster and stronger with its other hand. Peter was unable to do anything. All he could see now was the dark black ceiling above. Peter's legs had been cleanly cut off. The fear in Sia's heart grew even more, as for a moment she felt like she had tricked herself, when she saw how Pio was somehow able to match the strength of the beast. She didn't know how, she didn't know why, but she felt like maybe they had a chance to get out of here alive. However, the beast was simply toying with them. The next attack from the beast was a lot faster than the previous one, and now Peter's legs had been completely detached from his body. It was a strange sight to see as the beast was towering over Peter. Although his bladed hands were long, it seemed like the roots that were attached to the hard part of the creature could extend and retract. It was hard for her to confirm her theory. Science seemed to happen in an instant, and she was still trying to get over the shock. Even with her sprint spear inside the beast, it had little to no effect. She felt like her attacks were useless. The beast then walked forward, ignoring Peter on the ground. Sia then noticed that its body seemed to be facing in a certain direction. It had chosen its next target. It was looking at Logan. The suit's creation was almost done. It was mostly silver in color, matching that of the spiders. unlike the previous one, which was quite large and bulky, looking almost mech-light. This one suited Logan's body shape and stature more. Only the last part remained, which was the head. Logan saw the beast coming towards him and decided to quickly place his body into the suit. He planned on allowing the spiders to complete the final part. On the top of his hands were 2 circular rings. Around the edge of the rings were small, little metallic claws that looked similar to a tooth. "It's still not active," said Logan, looking at the circular rings. "The suit needs to be complete before I can do anything. Just a few more seconds." Taking another step, the beast suddenly felt something grabbing onto its leg. As it looked down, it could see the opponent that it had already defeated. Peter continued to grasp at the tree trunk-like leg as hard as he could. Once again, the beast looked down. This time it lifted its arm and started to extend above its head. Sia realized that she was indeed not imagining things. The beast could retract and extend its limbs. As the beast swung downward, Sia squinted. She couldn't watch anymore. Still, she needed to. When she opened her eyes once again, Peter's arm had been removed from his body. "Peter!" Logan said. The suit of armor had been completed. The suit was mostly silver in color, and the top helmet part covering the head was a single pane of glass, going from the chin up to the top of the head. The chest was plated in a green metal, while the 2 circles on the top of his hands were also outlined in green. "This won't be enough," Logan predicted after witnessing the fight between Peter and the beast. He had seen Peter fight in the VR game, and he could gauge his strength. There was still one more thing Logan needed. A weapon. A strange, square-like device was attached to Logan's belt. He chucked the strange object on the floor, and it suddenly expanded into what looked like a large chest. Logan quickly grabbed some crystals from the chest. "Others might think this is a waste, but our lives are on the line." After taking out the crystals, the device returned to its original size, and a robotic spider jumped up, returning it around his waist. After placing the 2 crystals in his hand, the green-like circles started to glow. A female robotic voice sounded inside his head. 2 intermediate-tier crystals detected. An energy weapon is being generated. "Still needs more time. Looks like it needs more time than I had previously predicted. That or the worry inside me is making me feel like this is taking forever," Logan said. The beast was now only a few meters away from Logan's position. The problem was, now that he knew the beast was able to extend its limbs, it was hard for him to gauge its true attack range distance. After analyzing his opponent, Logan felt like this suit was the best against it, but he was beginning to have second thoughts about whether or not he had made the right decision. The suit he used most of the time was equally balanced when it came to power, defense, and speed. The suit he had formed now focused on attack power. After seeing what the creature looked like, he thought it was the best option. With a small body frame and arms for weapons, he wanted to fight fire with fire. However, now that he knew it had some range, perhaps something speed-oriented would have been better. The other problem was that the suit was pretty useless when it came to defense, and right now his weapon hadn't even finished forming. Just as Logan was planning to dash towards it, a familiar voice shouted from behind the beast. "Hey, if you want to forget about me, you have to make sure you've killed me first," Peter shouted. As Sia turned her head to look at who was shouting, she was amazed. She rubbed her eyes a few times just to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. It was Pio. He was standing on his 2 feet, and his arm was regenerated. She knew he had impressive regenerative abilities, but this was something out of this world. Inhuman, almost. As Peter stood there, she noticed he had his hand over his belly. His regenerative powers were impressive, but he had used too much energy, and for the first time, he felt hungry. He started having second thoughts. If he was to get this severely injured once more, then maybe he wouldn't be able to regenerate anymore. The beast turned and looked at Peter, tilting its body slightly to the side. It seemed confused. Its interest piqued, and once again he started to walk towards Peter. Although Peter had regenerated, he hadn't suddenly gotten stronger. If he was to face the creature again, it would be the same outcome. As Peter saw it heading towards him, he was trying to decide what to do. Should I go for its legs? Maybe it's too fast. Maybe I should run and attack. Just because its attack speed is fast doesn't mean its legs are fast. However, as Peter had finished that thought, the roots in its legs contracted, then pushed off the ground, propelling it forward like some type of spring. It was now directly in Peter's face in a matter of seconds. It swung its arm out, and Peter could see the blade. With his reaction speed, he was able to react to the attack, but he could tell that he was a little bit too late, and the blade this time would chop his head off. "If only I was a little bit faster!" Peter shouted. A fraction of a second was all he needed. He continued to duck down with all his might, and as he did, the sound of an object swinging fast through the air was heard. "My head! It's all right, it's still on me," Peter thought. Looking at the beast, spirit spears could be seen plunging deep into its body. Sia, who had been watching from the side, was deeply confused. She looked closely at the spears that were inside the beast. They looked identical to her own. The only problem was that she wasn't the one who had thrown them. Those spirit spears hadn't come from her, which meant they could have only come from one person. She had seen the same thing happen before. "They say heroes always arrive at the last second," Vorden said with a smile as he appeared out from one of the buildings with Layla standing by his side. "Your family member, Peter Race White, is getting hungry." Seeing this message brought back bad memories for Quinn. No longer did Quinn need to be fed. The only situation where he did was if he had been too injured, needing a new energy source to power his regenerative abilities. Quinn no longer got the EXP shared message, and he started to fear the worst. He and Fex had been walking around in a circle-like area and had covered almost half of the distance while walking around. It seemed like luck wasn't on his side, and he had chosen the wrong direction. "Hey man, aren't we just walking in circles?" Fex complained. "The thing I see, I think it keeps moving," Quinn yelled back, lying about the situation. They were too far in, around one direction. If they were to turn around and head back, it would only take longer, but he was worried about what was happening, so he started to pick up the pace. After the first attack on Peter, the beast stood there, slightly confused, not following up with a second attack. Using this opportunity, he quickly shifted over and backed away from the creature. It didn't seem interested in following him, but this time with the spears that were stuck inside it. While doing this, he chose to head in the opposite direction of Vorden and Layla. They were both using long-range skills, and it wouldn't be good if the beast got close to them. Coming from the side of one of the buildings, both of them had quickly assessed the situation. Seeing a humanoid creature, they knew the others were in danger, and when they saw Peter trying to confront the thing, they didn't have much time to think and needed to act straight away. "Layla, go check up on Logan and see if there's anything you can do to help," Vorden said. "It looks like Logan is preparing something, and right now, he's the strongest one here." Vorden still had not gotten the chance to gather many abilities. If he were to gauge himself, he was at one of his weakest moments right now. Sia's support ability was at level 4, and Layla's telekinesis ability was at level 2. Using Rayton, he could power that up to level 6. Unfortunately, there was no way for him to get Peter's ability due to his cells being different. He could go up to Logan, and it would be a huge power boost. He wouldn't know how to use the ability, but at least he could combine his amount of MC cells into one. The problem with that was that it required Sill's help. Without Quinn here, Sill seemed disinterested in the whole event. The only other time he would come out was when the body would seem to be in danger. Looking at the creature in front of him, they would die before even finding out they were in danger. Not only that, but Peter needed Vorden's help. Based on the last attack, he had only come out alive by the skin of his teeth. "Vorden, we need to fight together," Layla replied. "This time, I'm not trying to be rude, but your attacks would do nothing and would only get in the way. I'm afraid I'm only a little better than you in this situation. We need Logan," Vorden replied. Gritting her teeth at hearing that she was weak once again, she ran off towards Logan. "Do you need any help?" she asked. "Energy weapon creation at 50%. "I'm sorry, but there isn't much you or I can do. We just have to wait a little longer," Logan replied. Again, Layla had heard those words. There was nothing she could do, and it was true, while there were 2 spirit spears inside it. The beast tried to swing its hand mid-air. It realized that for some reason its attack wasn't as fast as it usually would be. It continued to swing its arm downward. Then the spirit blade's time ran out. As it swung its hand down, it felt and looked faster than all of the attacks. Now that its speed had returned to normal, it looked up at Peter, ready to finish him off once again. It prepared its legs, ready to spring into action once again, but just before it was about to set off, Vorden threw another one of the spirit spears, landing right in the back of the beast's legs. Another spear came out again. This time, the beast got out from his leading downward position and moved to avoid the spear. "It looks like he figured it out," Vorden said. "This is the problem with high-level beasts." Now the beast was looking in Vorden's direction. "No, if they get rid of him, then I will have no support," said Peter. "I have to fight." Readying himself, he rushed forward. The beast continued to ignore Peter, though, and it seemed like he was going to deal with the biggest annoyance first, which was Vorden. As it turned its back, something strange happened. As it looked down, another spirit spear was stuck in its body. The beast was sure it was keeping an eye on the other boy, so where did the spear come from? "Pretty boy, you owe me a date after this one," Sia shouted. She had come out from the side of the house and was now standing in the street. She wasn't confident that the attack would be able to land at the distance she was at, so she decided to come closer. Although she was scared, her mind was screwed on straight. If they wanted to live, they would all need to do their part. Before the beast could choose its target, Peter was already upon him and had thrown a fist against his solid body. The beast shifted from his position a few inches back. "Did it not hurt him? How are we meant to kill this thing?" Peter said, as the beast went for the attack. Two spirit spears were thrown from both sides. The beast moved instinctively, avoiding the spears now. Although none of the spears hit, it would stop the beast from being able to land an attack on Peter. The two continued to do this, while the whole situation was going on, even with the beast's large body. The beast was able to avoid all of the spears thrown by the two. It was starting to grow tired, though, and without the others realizing it, it was inching its way towards one of them, storing the power in its legs until it got close enough. It managed to avoid more of the spears, then quickly contracting the roots of one of its legs, it sprung forward to the side. It didn't go for Vorden or Peter. It went for Sia. "Damn, why didn't I think of this?" Vorden said, and slapped a hand over his face, annoyed at himself. It was a simple rule when fighting. In a situation like this, it would get rid of the weakest and most annoying one first. Their distractions had only worked so well, so far thanks to both of them throwing the spears. Now, with it coming straight towards her, the spear she had been throwing finally managed to hit. However, it was useless. One or two spears weren't going to do much in helping her fight against such a thing. She didn't have the crazy amount of experience Vorden did, and the reaction and speed in Peter's head. "If I'm going to die, I'm going to curse and look at what kills me right in the face," Sia shouted. As its bladed claw was about to reach out and stab her in the face, they were stopped midair in its tracks, inches away from her face. "They say heroes arrive at the last second," Fex said, with his hands twitching, holding the strings using all of his strength. "Lame," Vorden muttered. "Doesn't he know I already said that?" At first, she thought that Fex had saved her, but on closer inspection, a strange purple shadow substance could be seen around it. The blade had been stopped. If it had moved any further, it would have pierced her skull, almost showing no resistance. Sia once again could live to see what would happen in the next few moments, still unsure if she would live past today. However, what she was surprised about was who exactly had come to save her. From the corner of her eye, she could see a black-hair boy, pulling and twitching off to the side. What was his name again, Fex? Sia thought. Wasn't he a level 1? But she didn't stay long to find out. While the beast was stuck in a place, she quickly ran off to where Layla and Logan were standing. As the beast saw its bladed arm being wrapped around by a strange shadow substance, while also being pulled by the strings, it wondered which one was affecting it more. For some reason, even though it was using all its strength, it was unable to move its arm forward to kill its target. It was something it had never experienced before. A whisper was suddenly heard in Peter's ear. "Go join the others," Quinn said. "You've fought enough, and if you get hurt again, who knows if you will survive." Peter looked to his side and saw Quinn standing there. He had already equipped all of his beast gear equipment before coming over ready for a battle. Still, even he and Fex were unprepared for what they were facing. There was no joy on his face. It was dead serious, and Quinn was fully concentrating. "If you are in trouble, I won't hesitate to sacrifice myself," Peter said as he walked off to where the others were. Before leaving, Peter turned once again. "Quinn, it's strong." Looking at the beast, still curious about its movements, Quinn replied, "I know." "New quest received. Defeat the king of the underground city, King Tyr Beast Lickmorn. The town has been left behind, and in its empty place the beast began to take over. Amongst the many, eventually a single creature took over, calming the seat and the title of the king. The others do his bidding as he protects the treasure located in the tower. Quest reward question. Peter didn't need to say anything. As soon as Quinn saw the strange beast, the system had immediately activated a quest for him. It had been quite a while since the system automatically gave him a task. Usually, it would appear when he faced a strong opponent of some sort. This also happened when he faced Leo. He found it strange that nothing had come up for the advanced tier beast. But it was probably because the system didn't deem it as special enough for the planet they were on. What interested Quinn about this strange quest was, for the first time, it seemed to inform a little bit about how the creature came to be. Is it because of the area we are in? Maybe it is related to the vampires and not the Dalki after all. The information also revealed that it had been acting as a guard for the tower. If such a strong beast was guarding it and had stayed underground, Quinn couldn't even begin to imagine what it was trying to protect. Lastly, the quest reward for defeating the beast. Even when going against Leo, there was a clear quest reward and an instant level up. For some reason, though, this one was hidden. He didn't know why, but the fact that it was hidden only got him curious. The real problem was, though, could they beat it? A king-tier beast. He started to think back about all the students going up against the advanced-tier beasts, and even with 50 of them, they were unable to kill such a thing. The ones that were left to fight were Fex, Vorden, himself, and Logan, but it seemed like Logan was still busy with something else. Sia was out of it and would no longer be of any use. The difference between this fight and the one earlier was that Fex and Quinn were willing to display their full powers. Sia could always be hypnotized for later, and even if she couldn't, all their lives were more important than one. The beast was no longer curious about the strange shadow in strings and pulled its arm back out of the shadow. Seeing this, Quinn quickly returned it to himself. There was one great advantage to them being underground. Quinn's shadow powers were stronger, even with the artificial light source from Logan. Just being in a darker environment increased the distance of his shadows. It was only because of this that he was able to use it a distance away from himself. As the beast moved its hand, Fex, for the first time, felt its enormous strength. "What? He wasn't this strong before, was he?" Fex said, as his hand started to ache holding on to the strings. "Does this mean Quinn's shadow was doing most of the work?" He could no longer hold on, and it was just the waist. It seemed like the beast was moving just fine with or without his strings. "I need to help them," Vorden said. Vorden was now standing by the other side. The 5 of them went to hide behind a building, out of the street and out of the way of what was about to go down. 70% of energy weapon has been created. Whatever Logan was doing, it looked like it still wasn't ready yet, and he couldn't join the fight. "Logan, do you mind if I touch you?" Vorden asked. "Even if you copy my ability, it's not like the others," Logan explained. "You won't be able to get a clear grasp, and the ability itself is pretty useless, honestly. It was only because I was able to implement it with my brain that I was able to come up with a use. Not saying you don't have brains, of course, but you understand. Logan, stop rambling and trust me." Noticing that Vorden was trustworthy and had come with ideas so far, Logan decided to put a little bit of faith in him. Part of the suit that was covering the arm shifted upward as the suit broke down into hundreds of little spiders, and they did a handshake. With that, Vorden started to move. He didn't go onto the street like the others thought he would. Instead, he went through the buildings, down the side, looking for the perfect spot. His aim was never to use Logan's ability, but only the MC cells that came with it. He had already used a large amount, throwing out spears constantly. Still, with Logan's level 8 ability, he had to have a large amount. Not only that, but if he could get Rayton or Syl to fight, they would be able to combine the other abilities, making a spirit spear above a level 8 ability. The level 4s didn't do much, but surely this would have an effect. The only problem was that the beast was now cautious against the spears, so Vorden wanted to get in the perfect location, waiting for the right time. Sometimes, when the ability level was higher, it would also consume more MC points with each use of the ability. There was no time for testing, and no second chances against a foe like this. "This is crazy," Sia shouted. "Why are the 2 level 1s, the weakest in our team, out there fighting? Are they trying to get themselves killed?" she yelled. Suddenly, a hand came towards her face and the right side of her cheek stung. When she looked at the person who had slapped her, she could see Layla was the one who had done it. "It's because of those that you're even alive," Layla shouted. "Layla, what do you mean?" Sia asked, holding her face. As Sia looked closely, she could see a dark purple shadow emitting from Quinn's back. "Those two level 1s are the strongest level 1s you will ever see." The beast was cautious about the two opponents. It didn't know why, but it felt like they were different from the ones before. The presence emitting from these two was similar to the boy it had thought before. Still, it wasn't entirely the same. Although he had an expressionless face, Fex was worried. There were two main reasons for this. They were going up against a king-tier beast. Fex struggled to fight an advanced-tier beast on his own. He wasn't yet at the point he could deal with a king-tier. "If only I had a puppet, maybe we would have better chances," he thought. This was the second problem. His ability, his family training, mostly focused on using a puppet as a fighting tool. Of course, they trained their bodies and strengths, but only the full potential and fighting power of the Sanguine's family would come out when they were using a puppet. He had finally found the perfect person, Erin, but now that she was gone, there was no one else that interested him, or he felt like would be the right fit. As they stood there, Fex moved his finger slightly as he threw out a needle with a string attached. It was so thin it couldn't be seen by the human eye. Once the string was attached to the beast's leg, he would pull with his strength, and the two of them would go in for the attack. However, before the string had even reached the beast, it threw its bladed hand down, cutting the invisible piece of string. Fex gulped at this sight. "That's not normal. That string is nearly as hard as steel. It shouldn't be that easy to break. My strings are useless against this guy. With no puppet and his sharp blades, I can't do anything, so I can only rely on my vampire abilities." Fex knew that none of his mind control and charm-like abilities would work on such a powerful creature, which meant they would have to deal with it the old-fashioned way. He looked at Quinn, who stood to his right, with his shadow shifting protecting him. It seemed like Quinn didn't quite know what to do either. "Ah!" Fex shouted as he charged in. "Quinn, I'll attack and you cover me with the shadow." Although Quinn didn't agree with the plan, it was already too late as Fex charged in. In Fex's mind, he was the faster, more skillful fighter of the two. All he needed was Quinn to use the shadow to block the attacks he couldn't see, and he was hoping that would be enough. While charging forward, Fex threw out blood swipes. Seeing this beast, they swung its hand blades. At such an incredible speed, it looked like it had managed to create its wind strike pressure that clashed with the blood swipes. Quinn followed closely behind, and it was a good thing he did, as the beast continued to swing its arms about, causing a flurry of swipes. From behind Fex, a few more blood swipes had followed. He didn't need to ask where they had come from. "It looks like you're a better backup than I thought," Fex said. Using the shadow, Quinn blocked some of the attacks, while also using the blood swipe of his own. The two of them continued to attack while pushing forward. It took the two of them using their blood swipes, including Quinn using his shadow, to match the speed of attacks coming from the king-tier beast, and currently they were at a stalemate. Watching from the side, Sia's mouth was left wide open. "What? Who are these guys? Their abilities? Do they look the same? And how are they able to go toe-to-toe with a king-tier beast?" Layla didn't say anything back, as it was pointless as her memory would soon be wiped off. Although they were able to match the power and speed of the king-tier's attacks, they couldn't keep this up forever. In a way, using the blood-type attack drained their life force, and they would eventually run out of energy. But the same couldn't be said for it. Not only that, but Quinn's MC points were deteriorating fast. He tried using the shadow to block as little as possible. With every block, the shadow would get damaged, causing him to use up his MC. The attacks were just too powerful. Knowing this, the two of them pushed forward. "Quinn, charge in!" Fex shouted. "Blood shield!" A wide barrier of blood was lifted from the ground, blocking the incoming attacks. Quinn didn't hesitate and went off to the side. "Windwalk activated!" Using his extra speed from his intermediate boots, he tried charging in from the side. "Blood crescent kick!" It was too risky to get in close. It would notice Quinn by then. Even with the attacks coming towards it, it did nothing to block them. The two attacks had landed on the beast, yet not a mark was left on it. "That was one of my most powerful attacks." There was only one thing left for Quinn to try. One of the beast's arms extended outward, aiming straight for him. "Flash step!" The blow was avoided, and the blood hammer was in preparation. A normal hammer strike was likely to do nothing against a beast like this. He needed his most powerful strike to hurt the beast. In the middle of his preparation for the strike, the tree root extended arm had turned around and extended, following Quinn's position. After a few motions of the bloodhammer, he needed to cancel it and avoid the blow. His shadow would move too slow, so he only had one option. Flash step! Quinn tried to execute the flash step, but for the first time he was too slow. Tilting his head to the side and kicking his feet off the ground, he managed to block the attack using his shoulder. The blade pierced through him easily, and now he was attached to the beast via its extended root arm. 60 of 80 HP. Although Fex wanted to help Quinn, he knew it would be a waste, and there was an opportunity to strike. Fex, using his great speed, had managed to get within striking distance of the beast. An uppercut fist encased in blood was aiming towards the beast's belly. It was an attack Quinn had never seen before. It was also the strongest attack that Fex had, combining his martial arts with his vampire skills. "You damn tree fell!" he shouted as he plunged his fist right into the center of its belly. Vibrations and pressure of wind came out from the attack, and the beast moved a foot back as it slightly curved and arched its back forward. "Yes, they got an attack in!" Layla cheered. "No," Logan said. "It's too early to celebrate." The beast stood upright and lifted its arm that was attached to Quinn. The two were lifted high, a few meters up in the air, as it used a strong force, slamming him down into one of the buildings off to the side. The building crumbled down on top of Quinn's body as he was thrown down. "Quinn!" Fex shouted. The attack was a powerful one, and even he wasn't sure if he would have made it out alive. Still, there wasn't much chance for him to worry. The beast retracted its arm from the fallen building and now was focused on Fex. The attacks coming towards him were at close range, and it took every bit of energy and skill for Fex to dodge all the blows. With each strike, he managed to avoid most of the attacks. Still, the edge of the beast's bladed arm scratched Fex. These weren't shallow cuts either. Some of them were quite deep. "He's fast, but not fast enough," Layla said. From the crumbled building off to the side, one of the larger slabs of walls was pushed to the side. The dust started to settle, and Quinn could be seen underneath it, covered in wounds and blood. Most of his bones had been broken, and it was painful to even lift his body. 12 of 80 HP. Blood bank activate. He had no choice, and needed to use the blood bank to heal most of the serious wounds. As his body started to recover, he watched Fex amazingly dodge the beast's fast attacks. Using his imagination, Quinn pictured himself in Fex's situation. He would have been by now with his speed. The fight continued, and a pool of blood could be seen underneath his 2 feet. The wounds were taking a toll on him as he started to slow down. In the middle of the fight, Fex started to lose hope. Even if he was faster, more skillful, it meant nothing. His strongest attack was unable to hurt the beast. For a king-tier beast to do anything, they would need at least an advanced-tier weapon, and even then it would unluckily be able to do much damage. "Am I going to die because of this ugly monster?" Fex thought. Quinn felt the same way. His intermediate-tier gauntlets just weren't going to be enough to hurt the king-tier's body. Fex continued to dodge. In the middle of his thoughts, a strange green beam of light could be seen from his side. "Duck!" Instinctively, Fex reacted to the words and ducked his body. The green beam of light carried on moving forward and went straight through the beast's body. "Energy weapon has been completed." "Looks like it was a success," Logan said. For the first time during the fight, black blood was trickling down from the wound. For the first time since the fight had started, the king-tier beast had finally bled. Just when Fex felt like all was lost, a strange green energy of light came out and plunged into the beast's upper body, although Fex was unaware of what had happened. Quinn, who had emerged from the rubble, managed to catch everything with his own 2 eyes. Quinn was still injured, his wounds were worse than usual, and even with the use of the blood bank, his body would take a while to heal. He had used the blood bank completely, and it was empty. It had brought him up to 62 of 80 of his HP. Healing this much would allow him to continue in the fight. He also had the flask that was given to him by Fex, but looking out how badly Fex was injured, he hesitated using it. He was debating whether the blood in the flask should be used on Fex instead. It was his own after all, and he didn't have a blood bank. That was clear after looking at how damaged his body was during the fight. As Fex's legs were wobbling and his speed was slowing down, from the side came a short man who was in a silver and green suit. "Logan!" Quinn thought. But his suit looked different from the others he had seen. There were beams of energy shaped like sharp daggers on top of his arms. They looked similar to an ancient weapon known as a katar. "Engage! Maximum system output," Logan said as he thrust his fist forward. The katar-like weapon suddenly grew longer. The green energy extended and went right through the beast's solid body. "Vex, I'm going to need your help," Logan said as he pulled out the energy blade from the beast. Logan knew this wasn't going to be enough. Suddenly, the beast's attention was on Logan, the person who had injured him. All Vex wanted to do right now was rest, but looking at Logan, he knew they couldn't rely on him. The beast went in for an attack from above, and Logan went to block with the energy blade, but when Vex looked at them both, it looked like watching a tortoise and hare race against each other. They now had the power and the weapon to injure the beast, but not the speed. Logan was too slow. Seeing this, using his last bit of energy, Vex pivoted and shifted himself using all his strength to dash forward. With his shoulder in front, he barged Logan out of the way, allowing him to avoid the strike. The blade kept going down, and although it didn't hit its original target, it still managed to hit Vex between his neck and shoulder. "Damn thing!" Vex screamed as more blood was dripping down his arm. "Energy blade, maximum output!" Logan shouted, and at the same time, one of the energy blades seemed to respond. It grew twice in size, and Logan slashed down with all his strength. It went through the beast's side, and the sound of something falling to the ground was heard. The green jade-like arm had been detached from its body, and black blood was now pouring out from the wound. "What is that?" Sia asked, amazed at what was happening. "I've never seen a weapon like that before. If he had stuff that was so effective, why doesn't everyone use it?" On the other hand, Layla, who was standing next to her, didn't have the same look of amazement on her face. Her forehead was wrinkled, as she was in deep concern. The green blade that had just been used had fizzled out, and now Logan only carried one on his arm. "I thought this was the case," Layla said. "I've seen one of these before, or to be more precise, I learned about this before. It's another way to use the beast crystal that was discontinued by the military." "Discontinued, but why?" Sia asked. "As you can see, by using crystals as a form of raw energy, one can create something called an energy blade. The problem is that all of its energy is coming from the crystal, and it needs a constant output to support it. Using the raw energy rather than mixing it with other materials creates a more powerful weapon. But this means two things. First, the weapon isn't permanent. Once all the energy from the crystal has been used, the weapon will disappear. This also means that the weapon's strength will vary depending on how much energy is used in the attack. Because of these reasons, the military decided that it was much more practical to use the crystal core to create beast weapons rather than energy weapons. Energy weapons were fine for the low-end use when using a basic tier or intermediate crystal, but anything above would be a waste. For someone like Logan, intermediate crystals weren't too hard for him to come by. He could just purchase them online on the marketplace. The problem was anything above that. Past the advanced tier crystal, there weren't many people who sold them. This was true for the advanced tier crystals. Instead, people would post requests, asking others to obtain a specific type of crystal for them. The problem was that Vex had not anticipated needing more than 2 intermediate crystals on a trip like this. It wasn't exactly something people freely carried around with them either. "It looks like the attack was a success," Logan said. With the black blood dripping from the beast's wound, it retreated for the first time, leaping back. Vex wanted to chase after the thing, but when he took a step forward, his wound seemed to have gotten the better of him. He went down to one knee, stopping himself from collapsing on the floor. "I'm more hurt than I thought." There was no point for Logan to chase it either. The energy blade was just a blade of energy. Unlike traditional beast gear, it didn't give any extra stats to the user, and the suit he was wearing didn't either. If he was to chase the beast, he wouldn't catch up to the thing in a million years. Suddenly, the beast's wound started to bleed less. It looked like some vine-like structures were starting to cover over the wound. Next from the wound, a little stump was starting to grow. "Am I imagining things, or is that thing getting smaller?" Layla asked, still looking from the side of the street. "You're right," Peter replied, his hand still hovering over his stomach. At the same time, he was looking at Sia in a slightly different way. "I never got an order not to hurt her today, right?" Peter thought. The group wasn't imagining things. As the stump started to grow, it looked like it was forming another hand, At the same time, the beast was getting smaller in size, as if he was taking his mass from one area and placing it in another. When it was all done, the beast once again had two bladed limbs that shined like jade. Only now, it was roughly the same height as a regular human. "Looks like we're going to have to go for round 2, Fex groaned out as he lifted himself off the ground. He knew that without his help, Logan wouldn't be able to do much. He was their attacker, their damage dealer, and he needed to protect him if they wanted to kill the beast. "Why don't you lie back down?" a voice said from his side as he felt a hand touch his shoulder. "Quinn? But how?" Fex asked. Vampires had supernatural healing abilities, but for serious life-threatening wounds, the use of blood would be needed. If the wound was bad but not life-threatening, they would eventually heal up but get hungry in the process. But what was strange about Quinn was how quick he had healed. Did he use the flask? Quinn's body had healed. He wasn't quite at full health, but he was able to fight once again. "We can talk about that later," Quinn replied while handing the flask back to Fex. "Take it, heal up." "I guess my guess was wrong," Fex thought. It was tempting for Fex, but in the end, he refused again. "No, Quinn, not to be rude, but you're too slow to go against something like this, and there might be another way for us to get out of this mess if I don't use it. You keep it." What Fex had said was correct. Quinn knew that with his speed, he would hit left and right by the beast. His shadow was strong, but not quick enough to catch up. "Don't worry about that," Quinn said as he walked forward. "Are you sure you would like to add all 6 points to agility?" "Points added. 26 plus 4 agility." Before trying to hand over the flask to Fex, Quinn had taken a tiny drop of blood, giving him 1 more point in agility. Then, using the remaining points from leveling up, he decided to put everything in one area.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.